The transport ship Silver Dawn slid through the glowing defense grid of Zerthos Prime. From his seat near the wide observation window, Commander Ethan Cross watched the planet grow larger. Its surface shimmered with towers of glass and steel, reaching for the stars like fingers of light. It was called the heart of the galaxy. But Ethan knew better. There was no heart here. Only fear. Only politics. He stood, straightened his black uniform, and walked toward the front of the cabin. His team sat silently. No one spoke. No one had spoken much since they left Earth 3 days ago. There was nothing left to say. This was their last chance. And deep down, Ethan knew it was already over. The pilot's voice broke the silence. "Commander, landing in 2 minutes." Ethan nodded and turned to face his delegation. 3 men, 2 women, all top officials of Earth's Defense Council. They looked tired, defeated. Ethan refused to show weakness. He forced his voice to stay calm. "This is it," he said. "Stay strong. Speak only if asked. Let them see we came for peace, not surrender." They nodded without a word. The ship touched down with a soft hum. The doors opened, revealing the council hall of the Galactic Union. Thousands of beings watched from raised balconies. Different species with different shapes, colors, and faces. All of them stared in cold silence as the humans walked in. At the center of the hall stood Chancellor Vela. Tall, silver-skinned, eyes sharp as glass. She wore the golden crest of the Union across her chest. She raised a hand. "Commander Ethan Cross," she said, her voice echoing. "You have returned for final talks. Speak now." Ethan stepped forward. He glanced at the high balconies again. They watched like hunters watching prey. He faced Vela and spoke clearly. "Earth comes in peace," Ethan said. "We have followed every demand for 50 years. We have kept our fleets at home. We have stayed out of your wars. Yet here we stand again, accused of being a threat." Vela's face remained still. "You are a threat," she answered. "Your technology grows faster than any species we have seen. Your weapons are unmatched. Your nature is violent. We have given you time to prove otherwise. You have failed." Ethan clenched his fists. "We have attacked no one. We have honored every treaty." Vela raised her voice, cutting him off. "You refuse to disarm your fleets. You refuse to surrender your deep space weapons. The Union has voted. You will stand down. You will place your defense systems under Union control, or face removal from the Union." The hall rumbled with quiet approval. Ethan felt his chest tighten. They had already decided. This wasn't negotiation. This was a demand for submission. He took a breath. Earth cannot agree to that. Murmurs filled the hall. Ethan held his ground. "If we disarm, we will be left helpless. You say you fear us, but you offer us no protection in return. Only control." Vela's silver eyes narrowed. "Then you refuse?" Ethan's voice dropped low, like steel grinding on stone. "We refuse to kneel." The hall exploded with noise. Voices in dozens of alien languages shouted down at him. Ethan stood firm, not moving. Vela raised her hand again, silencing the crowd. "You have made your choice," she said coldly. "You leave us no option. Earth will face the Union's judgment." Ethan took one last look around the great hall. His voice carried over the silence. "You fear us because you do not understand us. You fear us because we stand alone. So be it. Let the galaxy remember. Earth bows to no one." He turned without waiting for a reply. His team followed, heads high, though their hearts were heavy. They walked back to the Silver Dawn in silence. As the ship lifted off, Ethan looked down at the shining towers of Zerthos Prime. He knew what would come next. The fleets would gather. The Union would move to crush Earth. They believed they could win, but they didn't know about Project Helios. Ethan crossed his arms and stared out the window. Let them come, he thought. The journey home was quiet. The Silver Dawn moved through deep space like a shadow. Ethan stood alone in the command bay, watching the stars. His reflection in the glass looked older than he felt. His sharp brown eyes were tired. His jaw was tight. He replayed the words of Chancellor Vela again and again in his mind. The demand, the threat, the cold dismissal. They had never wanted peace. They only wanted Earth under their control. The door behind him opened with a soft hiss. It was Admiral Marcus Steele, his oldest friend and chief advisor. Marcus stood tall with broad shoulders and gray hair trimmed short. His face was hard, but his voice was low with concern. "You should rest, Ethan," Marcus said. "We'll reach Earth in 4 hours." Ethan didn't turn. No time for rest. Marcus walked closer. He stopped beside Ethan, looking out at the stars. "They've already started moving the fleet," Marcus said quietly. "Our long-range scanners picked up Union ships gathering near Titan's edge." Ethan nodded slowly. "Just as we expected." Marcus leaned against the glass, folding his arms. "So what's the plan? Do we call the council?" Ethan turned at last, meeting Marcus's eyes. "No," Ethan said. "We call the president." 4 hours later, the Silver Dawn landed at Earth Defense Command, a massive fortress buried under the ice of Antarctica. It was the heart of Earth's military brain, the place where the world's final decisions were made. Ethan and his team were led through layers of security until they stood in a private war room. Screens lined the walls, showing live images of Earth's orbit, Union fleet movements, and diplomatic channels. President Elena Vaughn stood at the center of the room. She was a small woman, older than Ethan, with silver hair tied back and deep lines around her sharp eyes. But her presence filled the room with silent strength. She turned as they entered. "Well," she asked, wasting no time. Ethan gave a short report. He told her every word spoken on Zerthos Prime, every threat, every lie. When he finished, the room fell silent. Elena took a deep breath. "Then it's done," she whispered. "We have no allies, no time, only one choice left." Ethan nodded. "Helios." The word hung in the air like a weapon itself. Several council members exchanged worried glances. General Reza, the head of Earth's ground forces, shook his head. "Helios was never meant to be used," Reza said. "It was built to scare them. Nothing more." Ethan stepped forward. "They aren't scared enough," he said. "They're coming with everything they have. We can't stop their fleets with ships and guns, but we can stop them with Helios." Reza slammed his fist on the table. "Do you realize what you're suggesting? If we use Helios, the galaxy will see us as monsters. They'll isolate us forever." Ethan stared at him. "They already have." President Vaughn raised her hand, silencing them both. She walked slowly to the window, looking out over the icy landscape. The room waited in heavy silence. Finally, she turned back to face Ethan. "If we do this," she said softly, "there's no turning back. Earth will survive, but at what cost?" Ethan's voice was firm. "Survival is the cost." Elena nodded once. Her decision was made. "Activate Project Helios," she ordered. "Ethan, it's yours to command." The next morning, Ethan stood on the Helios control ship, the Sentinel, high above Earth's orbit. The ship was massive, shaped like a blade stretching across the stars. Its core held the heart of Project Helios, a network of energy waves powerful enough to shut down every ship's system within light years. Only a few trusted officers knew it even existed. Ethan stood at the central console. A glowing sphere floated above the controls, pulsing softly. This was Helios. Once activated, it would send a pulse through deep space communication channels. Any ship that received it would shut down. Engines dead, weapons frozen, fleets powerless. Marcus stood at his side, his face grim. "Once we use it, they'll never forgive us," Marcus whispered. Ethan nodded. "Let them hate us, but let them fear us more." A communication officer turned from her station. "Commander, Union fleets have reached Mars orbit. They'll be at Earth's edge in 6 hours." Ethan placed his hand on the control sphere. His voice was steady. "Prepare the final message. One last warning." The officer nodded and began transmitting. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. He knew this wasn't victory. It was survival, and survival always came with a price. The Union's first fleet stretched across the Black Sea of space like a wall of steel. Thousands of ships floated in tight formation beyond Mars, their hulls glowing under the light of the distant sun. Carriers, destroyers, vacuizas, ships of every size and shape built by dozens of alien worlds. At the center of this fleet stood the Union's flagship, the Sovereign Blade, a massive warship larger than any human city. Its silver surface reflected the stars like a mirror. Deep inside, Chancellor Vela stood before a massive strategy table. Holographic maps of the solar system hovered in the air, showing Earth and the surrounding space. Vela studied the maps with cold eyes. The humans had refused. She knew they would. It had always been in their nature to resist. Now, she had no choice but to crush them before they grew even stronger. Around the table stood her top military leaders. Tall, armored figures with glowing skin, scaled faces, or mechanical limbs. Each from a different world, but united by fear of humanity. Admiral Threx, a towering reptilian from Draven 6, leaned over the map. "Our ships are in position," he hissed. "Give the order, and we will burn their stations first, then their planet." General Isara, a thin, long-limbed being from the Pale Worlds, folded her arms. "We should give them more time to surrender," she said. "One more warning." Vela's silver eyes narrowed. "They have made their choice. They will not kneel." She turned to the communication officer. "Send the final demand," she ordered. "Tell them they have 6 hours to surrender their defense network. If they refuse, we strike." The officer nodded and began transmitting. In the lower decks of the Sovereign Blade, Counselor Keln, one of Vela's oldest advisors, stood watching the fleet through a wide window. His dark skin shimmered faintly under the soft lights. His face was tense. He had served the Union for over a century, but something felt wrong this time. He turned as Vela entered the chamber. "You're pushing them too hard, Vela," Keln said quietly. Vela walked to the window, standing beside him. "They've left me no choice," she replied. Keln shook his head slowly. "We have pushed them to this point, not the other way around." Vela's jaw tightened. "They are dangerous. You've seen their growth. Their weapons. If we don't act now, we never will." Keln lowered his voice even more. "What if they have something we don't know about?" Vela turned to face him. "If they had anything that could stop us, they would have shown it by now." Keln looked at her for a long moment, then spoke softly. "Fear blinds us as much as it blinds them." Vela did not answer. She turned back to the window, watching the fleet. In her heart, she knew Keln might be right. But it was too late to turn back now. Hours passed. The final message had been sent. No reply had come from Earth. Vela stood again at the strategy table as her commanders waited. The countdown to the strike had begun. She raised her hand to address them. "We end this today," she declared. "The humans have rejected peace. The galaxy will see that the Union stands united against those who threaten balance." The room filled with silent nods. Vela looked toward Admiral Threx. "Prepare the strike." But just as Threx reached for the activation control, a new signal lit up on the main display. "Incoming transmission, Earth Defense Command." Vela's lips curled into a thin smile. "Put it through." The room fell silent as Ethan Cross appeared on the main screen. His face was calm. His voice was cold. "This is Commander Ethan Cross of Earth," he began. "You have ignored our warnings. You have gathered your fleets to destroy us. I speak now for the last time." Vela leaned forward, narrowing her eyes. "You will surrender your defense network," she said sharply, "or Earth will fall." Ethan's face didn't change. He spoke slowly, clearly. "Turn back now, or face what you fear most." The screen went dark. For a long moment, no one moved. Vela clenched her fists. "Empty threats," she hissed. "Proceed with the—" Before she could finish, every display in the room flickered. The lights dimmed. A strange pulse echoed through the ship. A wave of static. And then silence. Alarms began to flash across the control panels. Officers shouted in panic. "Ending up fine." Weapons unresponsive. Communications down. One by one, the ships in the fleet went dark. Engines failed. Shields collapsed. Weapons froze. The entire fleet hung lifeless in space like a graveyard of giants. Vela stared in shock as her command room fell into chaos. She turned to her officers. "Report. What is happening?" No one answered. No one could. Every system was dead. Keln stepped forward, his voice low and heavy with fear. "They warned us," he whispered. "And now they've shown us." Earth's night sky burned with artificial light. Cities across the world stayed awake, watching the news feeds. The people had heard the warnings. The Galactic Union was here. Their fleet had entered the solar system. Their ships surrounded Earth's orbit like a cage of steel. Fear spread like wildfire. But inside the massive Sentinel, high above Earth's surface, Commander Ethan Cross stood in silence. The bridge was dark, lit only by the glowing pulse of the Helios control sphere. Ethan's officers worked in tight formation. Every movement was precise, every breath heavy with tension. Admiral Marcus Steele stood beside Ethan, looking out the wide front window. The stars seemed closer than ever, but so did the end. The ship's communication officer turned in her seat. "Commander, no response from a Union after your last warning. Their fleet is powering weapons." Ethan nodded once. "Hold position." Marcus leaned closer. "Ethan, if we do this, we change everything." Ethan already knew. He had thought about nothing else for days. Earth would be safe, but the galaxy would never forget. The Union would never forgive. He pressed his hand to the control sphere. Its pulse grew brighter under his touch. The room filled with soft energy hums. "Open the fleet-wide channel," Ethan ordered. The officer tapped the controls. A soft beep confirmed the connection. Every Union ship, every station, every listening ear across the system heard Ethan's voice. "This is Commander Ethan Cross of Earth." He paused, breathing in the heavy silence. "You have crossed the line. You brought your war to our home. You believed we would break." He leaned closer to the sphere. "You were wrong." He pressed deeper into the sphere. The pulse turned white-hot. A deep, low vibration filled the Sentinel. The Helios wave was building. Marcus placed his hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Are you sure?" Ethan didn't look away. "I'm done being afraid." The wave released. It spread silently, faster than light. It reached the Union ships in seconds. On board the Sovereign Blade, Vela watched in horror as systems failed again. Control panels flickered. Engines shut down. Weapons locked in place. Officers ran from station to station, unable to stop it. The same thing happened on every ship. The First Fleet, the largest force ever sent against a single world, had become powerless. In the Union's command room, Vela slammed her fists on the dead control table. No, what is this?" Keln stood frozen, watching the fleet's status screens go dark one by one. His voice broke the silence. "They've done it." Vela turned sharply toward him. "This is impossible." But she knew it wasn't. This was humanity's answer. The weapon no one believed they would ever use. The ship's systems flickered again. And then Ethan's face appeared on the main screen, his expression cold and sharp as steel. "Your ships are dead," Ethan said. "Your weapons are useless. You have nothing left." Vela stood frozen. She had no words. Ethan's voice filled the command deck like a blade slicing through air. "Withdraw your fleet, or watch every ship you've ever built fall silent." Vela's breath caught in her throat. Around her, her commanders stood in silent defeat. She knew they couldn't fight this. She had no choice. Her voice shook with bitter anger. "Stand down," she ordered softly. All ships returned to Union space. The order spread across the Union fleet. The giant ships slowly turned, helpless and silent, moving like broken shadows as they began to retreat. Earth had won, but it did not feel like victory. Back on the Sentinel, Ethan watched the ships pull back on the main screen. The bridge crew let out quiet sighs of relief, but no one cheered. No one smiled. Marcus stepped beside Ethan, lowering his voice. "They're leaving." Ethan didn't respond at first. He kept his eyes on the dark fleet. He could feel the weight of what they had just done pressing on his chest. "We've made them fear us," Ethan said softly. "But at what cost?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't have to. They both knew. The galaxy would remember this day. Earth had not just defended itself. It had terrified the stars, and there was no going back. The Union fleet left Earth's orbit like a wounded beast, crawling back into the darkness of space. Across the galaxy, news of Earth's response spread faster than any ship. Worlds that had once watched with curiosity now watched with fear. On Zerthos Prime, the Galactic Union Council gathered again in silence. The Grand Hall, once filled with shouting voices and bold demands, now stood heavy and still. Chancellor Vela sat at the center, her face pale and tired. Around her, the other leaders whispered quietly. Some looked away. Some stared at her with cold, accusing eyes. No one dared speak loudly. Counselor Keln stood behind her chair, arms crossed. His face showed no pride, only regret. Finally, Vela stood. Her voice was thin but steady. "We miscalculated," she said. "Earth holds a weapon we did not understand. A power we cannot fight." She paused, looking around at the silent faces. "Make no mistake," she added. "We still face a threat, but we cannot defeat them now." General Asura, standing among the other council members, spoke softly. "Then what do we do?" Vela lowered her head. "We pull back. We watch. We wait." The room stirred again, this time with unease. The Union had never been forced to back down before. Never had they been made powerless. Keln leaned close to Vela and whispered, "We could reach out, speak to them again." But Vela shook her head slowly. "No, we show weakness if we beg. Let them make the next move." Far from the council hall, in the deep void of Union territory, Vela sent a private message to Earth. It was brief. A single request. "Name your terms." Back on Earth, Ethan stood once again in the war room of Earth Defense Command. President Elena Vaughn sat at the table, holding the message in her hand. The room was tense. No one spoke. Ethan stood across from her, arms folded. His face showed nothing. Elena placed the message on the table. "They're asking for terms." General Reza leaned forward. "We could demand their withdrawal from our borders, trade, rights, recognition of our independence." Admiral Marcus Steele shook his head. "They'll never trust us again, and we'll never trust them." Ethan didn't move. He stared at the message for a long time. His thoughts were heavy. His heart felt cold. Finally, he spoke. "No terms." The room fell silent. Elena looked up, surprised. "Ethan, are you sure?" Ethan nodded slowly. "They will never see us as equals, only as a threat. Let them keep their distance. Let them fear us if they must." Elena leaned back in her chair. She looked tired, older than before. "And if they come back?" Ethan met her gaze. "They won't." Ethan walked to the communications terminal. His message to the Union was short and final. "Earth stand alone. Let that be enough." He sent the message. The room stayed silent. No one dared say what they were all thinking. Earth had won, but they had also lost something that could never be restored: trust, friendship, hope for true peace. Ethan turned and left the room without another word. Later, Ethan stood alone on a balcony overlooking the frozen plains of Antarctica. The cold wind cut through his uniform, but he didn't move. He looked up at the stars. They looked the same as they always had. Bright, distant, unreachable. Behind him, Marcus approached quietly. "We did what we had to do," Marcus said. Ethan didn't look back. "Did we?" Marcus stood beside him, staring at the night sky. "You saved Earth." Ethan nodded slowly. "Yes, but now we're alone." Marcus placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder before walking away. Ethan stayed behind, staring at the stars that now felt farther away than ever. The days after the Union's retreat felt strangely quiet. Too quiet. At first, Earth celebrated. People filled the streets. Leaders praised the defense fleet. News stations called it humanity's greatest victory. But the celebrations didn't last. The silence that followed felt heavier than war. 2 weeks later, Earth's long-range communication systems fell silent. One by one, the Galactic Union's channels closed. No messages came in. No trade ships arrived. No diplomats sent requests. The stars had gone quiet. Earth's people waited, hoping the silence was temporary. But it wasn't. The Union had not returned with fleets or weapons, but with something worse. Isolation. In the halls of Earth Defense Command, President Elena Vaughn held emergency meetings. The council filled the war room again and again, searching for answers that didn't exist. General Reza slammed his fist on the table. "They're freezing us out," he growled. "Trade, travel, alliances gone. We've been cut off from the galaxy." Admiral Marcus Steele nodded grimly. "No more fuel shipments. No more technology trades. We're on our own." Ethan stood quietly at the window, looking down at the ice below. He already knew this was coming. The Union didn't need to fire another shot. Isolation was their new weapon. President Vaughn turned to Ethan. "You knew this would happen," she said softly. Ethan nodded once. Yes. The room waited for him to say more, but he didn't. What more was there to say? The council argued for hours, but every idea ended the same way. Earth was alone now, and no one knew how long it would last. Months passed. The world adjusted. Factories pushed to build what they could no longer buy. Scientists raced to replace lost alien technology. Earth's defense systems stayed fully active, watching the stars like hunters waiting for prey. But nothing came. Not fleets. Not messages. Nothing. The people grew restless. Some blamed the Union. Some blamed Earth's leaders. Others blamed Ethan. One evening, Ethan stood on the roof of the Global Defense Center in New York City. The skyline glowed with lights, but the streets below felt strangely empty. The weight of the past months pressed down on him like a heavy stone. Marcus joined him again, standing silently at his side. "It's been half a year," Marcus said quietly. Ethan nodded. "I know. They still haven't made contact," Marcus added. "I know." Marcus let out a long breath. "Do you think they ever will?" Ethan turned his eyes to the stars. "I don't know." Marcus shifted on his feet. "The council wants to open talks again," Marcus said carefully. "They think if we reach out, show we want peace, maybe they'll listen." Ethan looked down at the streets below. "They won't." Marcus clenched his jaw. "You can't be sure of that." Ethan turned to face him. "Yes, I can. The Union made their choice. They'll never trust us again." Marcus didn't argue. He had heard this answer too many times. But something in his eyes showed he wasn't ready to give up hope. "You saved us, Ethan," Marcus said softly. "But now you have to lead us through what comes next." Ethan turned back to the sky. He felt the weight of those words pressing deeper than ever before. "I just don't know what comes next," he whispered. 2 days later, Earth's deep space network picked up something strange. A single encrypted message. No signature. No origin. Ethan stood at the comm station as the technician played the message. It was short, just a single line of text. "Not all fear you. Some remember who you used to be." Ethan read the words again and again. He tried to trace the signal, but it was gone, like a shadow in the dark. Marcus leaned over his shoulder. "What does it mean?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "I'm not sure, but it means we're not forgotten." For the first time in months, Ethan felt something other than fear or anger. It wasn't peace. It wasn't victory. It was hope. 1 year later, Earth had changed. Factories worked day and night. New ships left the shipyards, built only with human hands and human technology. Space stations orbited the planet, silent and heavily armed. Cities were brighter. Walls of steel and glass rose higher than ever before. But Earth felt smaller. No ships came from beyond the stars. No voices spoke from distant worlds. The galaxy had locked its doors, leaving Earth on the outside, alone in the dark. Commander Ethan Cross stood in his office aboard the Sentinel, now permanently stationed above Earth. He watched the empty sky. For a year, he had watched, waiting, listening, nothing. The single message they had received months ago still haunted his thoughts. "Not all fear you. Some remember who you used to be." He had replayed it more times than he could count. Every time, he asked the same question. Who sent it? And what did it mean? A soft chime broke the silence. Ethan turned to see Admiral Marcus Steele enter the room. Marcus carried a data pad, but his face showed something different today. Something Ethan hadn't seen in a long time. Uncertainty. "What is it?" Ethan asked. Marcus held out the pad. A ship just entered the system. Ethan's heart skipped. "Union." Marcus shook his head. "No identification. No Union signal. No weapons armed. Just one small ship. Alone." Ethan took the pad and read the scan report. The ship's engine signature didn't match any known Union design. It was old, slow, small. "What do they want?" Ethan asked. Marcus pointed to the pad. "They're asking for you by name." Hours later, Ethan stood on the landing deck as the strange ship docked. The small craft hissed softly as it settled on the platform. Its metal surface was scratched and dull, showing its age. The door opened. One figure stepped out. Ethan tensed, ready for anything. Soldiers stood ready nearby, but Ethan raised his hand. stopping them. The figure was tall, covered in a simple dark cloak. The hood fell back, revealing a face Ethan didn't expect. Human. A woman. Older than Ethan. Her eyes calm, but sharp. She stopped a few steps away from him and spoke softly. "You don't know me," she said. "But I know you." Ethan studied her carefully. "Who are you?" She smiled faintly. "An old friend of Earth from a long time ago." Ethan didn't lower his guard. "Why are you here?" The woman looked up at the stars, then back at him. "There are others," she said. "Not Union. Not enemies. People who believe Earth deserves more than isolation. People who remember when your world stood for more than fear." Ethan's heart pounded. "You're saying there are allies out there?" The woman nodded. "They've stayed silent. Watching. Waiting. Like you." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Why come forward now?" The woman's voice dropped low, steady. "Because the Union is not as strong as it seems. They've started a fracture. Some worlds want freedom. Some want peace. Real peace." She stepped closer. "You showed them your strength. Now, you have a chance to show them something else." Ethan felt the weight of her words settle on him like stone. He had spent a year believing Earth's future was locked in fear and loneliness. But now, standing here, something inside him began to stir. Could there really be another way? He didn't speak right away. He looked back at the stars. They didn't feel so distant now. Not with this new possibility standing right in front of him. He turned back to the woman. "Tell me everything." 1 week later, the small ship left Earth's orbit, carrying Ethan's message to those who were willing to listen. It was a message of strength, but also of hope. Earth would no longer stand alone. Ethan stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, watching as the ship disappeared into the stars. Marcus stood beside him, his face filled with cautious hope. "Do you think they'll answer?" Marcus asked. Ethan didn't hesitate this time. "Yes." "Ido." For the first time in a long time, Ethan smiled. It wasn't the end. It wasn't over. The galaxy still had stories left to write, and Earth was ready.